Sometimes, Hollywood doesn't just reflect the world, it reaches right through the screen and predicts it. You ever wonder if the writers of the past were secretly time travelers, planting wild ideas that would become tomorrow's headlines? From dystopian cities to tech that seemed impossible, pre-code movies gave us blueprints for the future. And half the time, nobody realized it. Which movies rid the world's fortune with such eerie precision? Stick around, because you'll never look at these old films the same way again. Metropolis 1927. Let's kick this off with the granddaddy of cinematic crystal balls, Metropolis. Released in 1927, this German sci-fi epic basically invented the city of the future look that every dystopian blockbuster now copies, like it's a group project. The first time people saw Metropolis's towering skyscrapers, endless highways, and automated factories, and they were blown away. This was decades before cities like New York or Shanghai would become walls of steel and glass. But here's where it gets spooky. Metropolis didn't just imagine a world full of robots, it warned us about one. The film's iconic Maschinenmensch was a lifelike, eerily human android created to deceive and control the masses. Sound familiar? Yeah, it's basically an influencer with a Wi-Fi connection, except a lot shinier. This machine seduces, manipulates, and ultimately triggers chaos, all while the city's elite watch from above and the workers slog away below. Metropolis nails a future where technology creates more problems than it solves. We've got automation replacing jobs, politicians obsessing over AI, and a world where the rich and poor might as well be living on different planets. And let's not forget surveillance. In Metropolis, workers are constantly monitored, their every move watched by bosses who think control equals progress. If that doesn't sound like every open-plan office with a tracking app, I don't know what does. The film's message is almost comically accurate now. Blind faith in tech without a moral compass is a recipe for disaster. Every time another miracle robot threatens to take your job or some billionaire builds a city from scratch, remember, Metropolis saw it coming a century ago. A silent movie, but its warnings are still screaming. Just imagine 1930. Okay, picture this. It's 1930, and Hollywood decides to show the world what the far-off year of 1980 will look like. Flying cars, video calls, food and pills, just another day in Just Imagine, a movie that tried to out-future everyone and weirdly got a lot of things right. First off, the cityscape. The film opens on a New York skyline so packed with traffic, it makes modern gridlock look like a lazy Sunday drive. Planes zip between skyscrapers, and there's an actual air traffic controller sitting on a balcony, managing the chaos. Sound absurd? Flash forward, and we've got drones, personal flight prototypes, and air taxis slowly becoming a reality. Just imagine, guests, that cities would stretch skyward, and the streets below would basically become parking lots. A prediction that's uncomfortably spot on. Now, here's where it gets really eerie. The movie straight up invents video calls. The characters casually ring each other up and see each other's faces on flat screens decades before FaceTime or Zoom. Remember, this was at a time when even a regular phone call was a little bit magical. And then there's the personal ID numbers. In the film's future, everyone is assigned a number instead of a name. A weird foreshadowing of today's obsession with passwords, social security numbers, and digital identities. But the best part? The social commentary is sharp. In Just Imagine's version of 1980, people obsess over beauty. The government decides who you can marry, and everything is automated. It's part satire, part accidental prophecy, and all wild speculation. Except the speculation is weirdly accurate. Next time you're stuck in a Zoom meeting or scrolling through ID requests, just remember, someone in 1930 saw it coming, and they even put it to music. High Treason, 1929. Here's one most people have never even heard of, but High Treason was swinging for the fences before sci-fi even had its first real home run. Released in 1929, this British film threw its audience headfirst into a future set in the then shocking year of 1940, where the world was teetering on the brink of another devastating war. Sound a little too real? That's just the beginning. High Treason's vision of tomorrow was filled with wild stuff. Personal televisions, underground mass transit, and even women fighting on the front lines of combat. In a world where trench warfare was still fresh in people's minds, the idea that women could be soldiers wasn't just bold, it was practically science fiction. Fast forward, and now it's a standard part of military life across the globe. It's almost like the movie was whispering to the future, you're going to want to keep an eye on this. But what's really spine-chilling is how the film nails modern tech's dark side. High Treason features world leaders communicating instantly through video screens, making split-second decisions that affect millions, sound like anyone's last week on Twitter or an emergency World Summit livestream. The movie even throws in drone-like machines used for surveillance and warfare. Back then, the idea of flying robots seemed laughable. These days, not so funny. And then there's the plot itself. The world is split between two massive rival political alliances, staring each other down with weapons primed. The film's bleak warning is clear. Technology might make life easier, but it can just as easily push us to the edge of disaster. In the end, High Treason feels less like a dusty old movie and more like a telegram from the past saying, don't get too comfortable. Watch it now, and you'll wonder if anyone in Silicon Valley owns a copy. The Last Man on Earth, 1924. Time for a wild premise. A pandemic wipes out every man on the planet except one. And suddenly, the last dude alive is the most wanted man on Earth, literally. The Last Man on Earth is so bonkers, you almost want to laugh it off, but here's where things get uncomfortably prophetic. Set in the future year of 1954, the story begins with a virus accidentally unleashed on the population. Within weeks, men everywhere are dropping like flies, and the world flips upside down. In the movie's fantasy, what follows is chaos, competition, and wild gender politics. But nearly a century after its release, the idea of a global health crisis reshaping society hits way too close to home. The film's predictions go beyond pandemics. As the story unfolds, women take control, run governments, and set the rules. Social order is turned on its head, and the lone male protagonist is hounded, prized, and eventually put on trial, not for his actions, but for simply existing. In an era when women couldn't even vote in much of the world, this was a radical, subversive fantasy. Today, debates over gender roles, representation, and equality are at the heart of every culture war. The movie was playing chess while everyone else was just learning the rules. And here's the kicker. The idea that a single biological event could upend everything, that's not science fiction anymore. From viral outbreaks to the way society restructures itself in the face of disaster, The Last Man on Earth looks less silly and more like a black mirror reflecting our own anxieties. If you thought pre-code Hollywood was all song and dance, this one proves they had their finger on the pulse, and maybe a little bit of future vision too. Men Must Fight 1933. If you think doomsday predictions and talk of global conflict are just modern inventions, Men Must Fight will make you think again. Released in 1933, this drama didn't just flirt with the idea of a world at war. It laid out a blueprint for World War II, 6 full years before the real thing erupted. It's the kind of prediction that makes you squint at the script and ask, how did they know? The movie is set in 1940, a future at the time, where the world teeters on the brink of a massive conflict sparked by assassination and rising tensions. Sounds eerily familiar, right? Political alliances form, diplomats scramble, and the world's fate hangs in the balance as nations lurch toward open warfare. But Men Must Fight didn't stop at guessing the date of the next big war. It envisioned advanced aerial bombers dropping devastation on cities. A terrifying reality that, just a decade later, would become daily news in London, Berlin, and Tokyo. But the film's predictions cut deeper than just military hardware. It wrestled with the big moral questions that would haunt the coming decades. Is peace ever truly possible? Or is humanity doomed to repeat its worst mistakes? The lead character, a pacifist mother, pushes against the tide of violence and nationalism, fighting to keep her son out of the conflict. The emotional tension feels ripped from a present-day family drama about war, sacrifice, and the impossible choices that come with them. Here's what really hits hard. Men Must Fight paints a future where technology magnifies human folly rather than fixing it. When war comes, it's not the machines that save us. It's the same old human mistakes on a grander, deadlier scale. In predicting the horror of World War before it arrived, the film stands as both a warning and a gut punch. Watch it today, and you'll realize some lessons from the past never go out of style, no matter how many times we try to ignore them. Night Nurse 1931. If you think medical drama is just for modern streaming, think again. Night Nurse was serving up dark hospital secrets before Grey's Anatomy was even a twinkle in Hollywood's eye. On its surface, this is a hard-boiled pre-code thriller about a rookie nurse discovering a sinister plot in the children's ward. But dig a little deeper, and you'll spot some shockingly accurate predictions about healthcare scandals, medical ethics, and even whistleblowers that would come decades later. Let's set the scene. Barbara Stanwyck stars as Laura Hart, a gutsy young nurse who uncovers a plot by hospital staff to slowly starve two children for the sake of their inheritance. The hospital's management? Either clueless or criminally complicit. If that doesn't ring some bells about modern concerns over malpractice, corruption, and patient neglect, you haven't been reading the headlines. But Night Nurse isn't just about one bad apple, it's about a system where profit trumps care, and the vulnerable are just numbers on a ledger. Fast forward to the real-life stories of underfunded hospitals, insurance fraud, and shocking lapses in care, and you realize this movie was peering into the future. The rise of healthcare exposés, from documentaries to Netflix specials, feels like a direct descendant of the world Night Nurse warned us about. Even the don't rock the boat culture among staff, where speaking out gets you blacklisted, is eerily familiar in today's climate of corporate secrecy. Here's the twist. Laura fights back. She blows the whistle, puts herself at risk, and exposes the truth, proving that sometimes the smallest voice can have the biggest impact. If that's not a pitch-perfect preview of modern whistleblower drama, from Aaron Brockovich to today's viral news stories, I don't know what is. Night Nurse wasn't just ahead of its time, it practically invented the playbook for the medical thriller, exposing the dark underbelly of care with a chilling, almost psychic clarity. FiveStar Final 1931. Before TMZ, viral news scandals, and cancel culture, there was FiveStar Final, a pre-code classic that not only roasted tabloid journalism but accidentally mapped out the entire future of sensationalist media. On the surface, it's a newsroom melodrama, but what lurks underneath is a masterclass in predicting just how destructive the press could become in an age of nonstop scoops and clickbait. Here's the setup. Edward G. Robinson plays Joseph Randall, a jaded newspaper editor under pressure to boost circulation. His solution? Dig up an old murder case, splashing it across the front page for no other reason than to grab eyeballs and sell papers. Sound familiar? Today we call it going viral, and the human cost is just as real. What makes FiveStar Final eerily prescient is its understanding of the media machine. No story is too sacred, no victim too vulnerable, if it means more readers or a bigger bottom line. The paper's relentless pursuit of a hot story shreds the privacy of the victims, ruins lives, and leads to tragedy, all for a fleeting bump in numbers. If you've ever seen an online pile-on, a reputation destroyed by a tweet, or a private citizen's life ruined by a viral news cycle, you've basically watched the plot of FiveStar Final in real time. But here's the kicker. The film knows there's no easy fix. Even the journalists feel trapped, just cogs in a ruthless system that chews up anyone in its path, including themselves. Randall's growing guilt and the disastrous fallout for the family at the heart of the scandal hit like a gut punch, reminding us that behind every must-see headline is a real human cost. In a world where every phone is a camera and every user a publisher, FiveStar Final saw the tabloid apocalypse coming, and it didn't blink. The Big House, 1930. If you've ever wondered where gritty prison dramas got their start, look no further than The Big House, the movie that set the bar for every lockup epic that followed. From The Shawshank Redemption to Orange is the New Black. But here's what's wild. Buried in this pre-code classic is a crystal-clear prediction of America's future obsession with mass incarceration and the social chaos it brings. The story centers on Kent, a mild-mannered guy tossed into a brutal, overcrowded prison where violence, corruption, and riots are just part of daily life. When this movie dropped, prison was still seen by many as a place for rehabilitation, not a human warehouse. But The Big House blew that myth to pieces. Its depiction of squalid conditions, inhumane overcrowding, and guards barely keeping a lid on the chaos was radical for its time. And here's the time travel moment. The movie anticipated the very real explosion of America's prison population in the decades to come. Overcrowding? Check. Recidivism? Check. Prisons as pressure cookers for society's failures? Triple check. Even the way the Big House explores the racial and class divides inside its walls feels weirdly modern. The film shows how the system chews people up, pits inmates against each other, and offers little hope of real change, a dynamic that still fuels debates on prison reform and social justice movements today. But the punchline is bitter. In the Big House, attempts at reform and rebellion are met with brutal crackdowns, and the cycle rolls on. It's a bleak prediction, but also a challenge, one that says, this is where we're headed if nothing changes. Turns out, Hollywood's oldest prison drama was looking into the future and saw us still stuck behind bars. Looking Forward, 1933. Think economic doom and gloom is something new? Looking Forward was already staring into the abyss almost a century ago. This forgotten pre-code gem, adapted from H.G. Wells's work, imagined a world ripped apart by depression, unemployment, and a workforce on the brink of total collapse. When it dropped in 1933, the world was crawling out of the Great Depression, so sure, the fear was real. But Looking Forward pushed things further, quietly sketching out a future where automation, technological progress, and corporate power threaten to leave millions behind. The plot centers on a loyal employee and his ruthless boss, both trapped in a collapsing retail empire, as machines and new ways of doing business make entire jobs obsolete. Fast forward to the 21st century and tell me you haven't seen this story play out in headlines. Amazon warehouses, AI replacing entire departments, the endless churn of layoffs. Looking Forward could double as a how-to manual for modern economic anxiety. What really lands is the movie's prediction about the human cost of progress. Workers become invisible, left scrambling, as society idolizes productivity and profit. There's even an early critique of consumerism and the constant chase for the next big thing, decades before Silicon Valley made it gospel. The film asks tough questions. What happens to community when business decides nobody's useful anymore? Is innovation worth it if it leaves people behind? The answers aren't easy, but the warning rings loud and clear, and in the middle of the struggle, Looking Forward reminds us. The future isn't just about gadgets or numbers, it's about people. The fact that we're still wrestling with the same worries nearly 100 years later? That's one prediction that hit way too close to home. Transatlantic Tunnel, 1935. Sure, this one barely squeaks into the pre-code spirit, but Transatlantic Tunnel deserves its spot for one reason. It looked across the ocean and saw a future where impossible engineering becomes reality. The film tells the story of a grand project to dig an underground tunnel linking New York and London, complete with high-speed trains zipping beneath the Atlantic. Sound wild? Sure. But now we've got Elon Musk pitching sub-ocean tunnels, and tech giants sketching out dreams for high-speed underwater travel. You tell me who blinked first. In the movie, the tunnel is a symbol of hope, unity, and human ambition. But the journey is anything but smooth. Workers clash with machines. Personal lives get steamrolled by the demands of progress, and the whole enterprise teeters on the edge of disaster more than once. There's optimism, sure, but it's a hard-fought optimism, haunted by sacrifice and setbacks. What's uncanny is how Transatlantic Tunnel gets the tone of modern megaprojects just right. Big promises, even bigger challenges, and a public that can swing from awe to outrage overnight. The film predicts that the real danger isn't the ocean or the engineering. It's the cost to the people caught in the gears. We're still watching massive infrastructure dreams stumble, mired in politics, money, and human risk. And yet, the tunnel dream persists. In the end, Transatlantic Tunnel isn't just about a wild ride across the sea. It's a prophecy about how far humanity will go to connect, create, and conquer nature itself, even if it means paying a price no one saw coming. When you hear about new plans for underground rails or globe-spanning travel, remember, this movie has already drilled right into the future. So, next time you brush off an old black and white movie as just fantasy, remember, These pre-code films had their fingers on the pulse, and sometimes they beat the future to the punch. Did any of these predictions shock you? Or do you think today's movies will get it right about the decades ahead? Drop your thoughts in the comments, like and subscribe if you love stories where Hollywood goes full psychic. And don't forget, sometimes the past isn't just behind us. It's waiting around the corner, ready to happen all over again.